Today we're starting our walk at the 15th Street Prospect Park West station of the F and G trains. The station was constructed approximately 1932, 35, somewhere in there. We're going to exit at Prospect Park West and Bartel Pritchard Square. I like this exit because when you get up to the top of the stairs and you're outside, when they built this in 1930s, this subway entrance, they built it to be compatible with the stone wall on the entire western border of Prospect Park for the length of Prospect Park West while it borders the park. Well, sorry about that, folks. We had a gap of, I would say, less than a minute due to technical difficulties. But this is a continuation of the path that we were on just a few seconds ago before those technical difficulties. The LaFrac Center at Lakeside, which is about a half-mile walk, maybe 3/4 of a mile walk to our right, is the most recent major capital improvement to the park. It replaced a 1960s era skating rink with a 2010s era multiple skating rinks. The facilities can be used all year round as a water park of sorts. And then there are facilities including a cafeteria and, for this park, the newest set of restrooms. But we're not going to see that today. In the distance, there's a maybe 2-story building, but it's got a green peaked roof, or cupola, maybe that's called. I don't know. That is the main vehicle storage and maintenance center of the vehicles, the Parks Department vehicles that are assigned to Prospect Park. Well, we came to the inevitable fork in the road. I don't remember if I mentioned earlier that the park, besides being built about 10 years after Central Park, was designed by the same team, Frederick Law Olmsted and Calvert Vaux. When designing Prospect Park, they divided it into 3 main areas. The Long Meadow, which is immediately to our right, and we'll get a view through the trees here. So the Long Meadow is one piece, the Netherwood is the middle, and that's more of a woodsy, forested area. And then there's the lake area, the southernmost portion. When Olmsted and Vaux designed the park, one of their goals was that pedestrians like us would have a constantly changing view, that the paths would be winding so that every few hundred feet the view would change. See, we went from a view of the long meadow to a storage yard for the Parks Department. This is the picnic house. I don't know if it actually served as a picnic house at one point, but it is one of the main facilities in this park that you can rent to have an event. Never actually been to an event here, but I know people who have. Other places that you can rent to have an event in the park include the Boathouse, which is probably on the exact opposite portion of the park that we're on now, and I think the Lakeside Center. On a smaller scale, when the carousel is in season, you can rent the carousel during hours which it might normally be closed to the public. Thus creating a source of tension when members of the public come in on a weekend and want to board the carousel. This barbecue area is new. I don't see any people barbecuing today. But they're probably saying, if I knew the weather was going to be like this. And we're basically heading north. We're gonna, I said we were running along the western edge of the long meadow, the northernmost part of the park. In a few feet, we will have a view of the long meadow, an unobstructed view, or maybe just a lightly obstructed view. We're at approximately 3rd Street, and we're heading towards Grand Army Plaza, which was originally designed to be the grand formal entrance to the park, the main entrance. I will say this is many, many more people on the meadow, the long meadow, than I've seen in months.
Alright, so we're headed in
Here's where the path that we're on comes very close to the park drive south. a certain U.S. senator lives in one of the buildings in this view. This path here is what Parks Department staff refer to as a desire line. This path was only recently built, and it was only recently built because park users had worn a very visible path in the form of dust and destroying whatever grass was growing there. So Parks Department said, people are going to cross here anyway, we might as well make it an inviting crossing, and they'll know to cross here, and it'll limit any damage in other nearby sections. We will see other examples of this in a couple minutes. So we're going to change our perspective on Longmeadow, and it was designed so that if you're standing here at the northern end and you look down, it looks like it goes on forever. And because Grand Army Plaza was designed to be one of the main entrances to the park, and there are two main portals designed for pedestrians entering the park at Grand Army Plaza. This is one of them. It's the Meadowport Arch. I had to look on the sign to see that in the interest of full disclosure. So, the Meadowport Arch and some of its infrequent users and some of its most frequent users. So we're just going to turn around for a second, because part of what Olmsted and Vaux hoped to achieve was that as you're entering the park from the bustle of downtown Brooklyn, you would slowly get an opening vista onto the park, kind of like an ever-expanding landscape, until you see this meadow that seemingly goes on forever. Okay, so we walked about halfway through Meadowport Arch, but we're going to exit the park through the Endale Arch, the second grand entrance for pedestrians. The Endale Arch had been under rehabilitation and reconstruction, I think at least twice in the last 15 years. But the project that was completed about a year ago is very nice now. Here is another path that was constructed in the last few years, resulting from a desire line. Okay, the rules for dog owners. Also useful information for non-dog owners. Here is the apparently weekly practice of the Jedi. Here's the Endale Arch. The wood ceiling. unlike the Meadowport Arch, when the Endale Arch was restored, it was restored without any benches. And as you can see, there are no people sitting there appearing to be semi-permanent residents of the arch. And then you have this winding path that brings you to Grand Army Plaza and brings you back to the reality of the city. Every Saturday throughout the year, there's a farmer's market at Grand Army Plaza, and so we're approaching that. It doesn't appear very busy right now. I think it's late enough in the afternoon that it's close to closing time, and some vendors have already left and the others are packing up. But there's still a fair number of customers.
Because he knows that sin will destroy us. It's destroying our city right now. We don't want to talk about it.
So, people like tacos, apparently. Yeah. People who go to farmers markets like tacos. Can't really see from, well, here's the Grand Army Plaza Arch. It was built as a monument to the Union Army following the Civil War. The frieze at the top, near the top, says "to the defenders of the Union, 1861 to 1865. Oh, I see people crossing, but as long as the pedestrian signal, okay, here we go. You still have to look all ways. We've got across the plaza the main branch of the Brooklyn Public Library. I think this facade was built during the Depression. It was part of the library greatly expanding. They preserved a good portion of the original structure. We're walking under the arch now. This was closed for a number of months. I think the Parks Department was doing some repairs of the arch to make it safer. This is the newest apartment building bordering the park, but it's about 20 years old. In a few months, this fountain will be running. I don't remember who the artist is or the sculptor. It might be Alexander Calder. I will have to look it up when I get home. There's a big traffic oval going around Grand Army Plaza, and it was the site of many vehicle crashes over the years. It was reconfigured a bit, and the traffic signals retimed, and I think it's safer now. Here is a memorial to John F. Kennedy. This was missing for many of you, not missing, but it was removed and only recently replaced. It was removed for rehabilitation because I think the monument, well, let's go see. Right. So it was installed in, or completed in 1965. So it was
I think so.
probably close to 50 years old when it was taken out for rehabilitation. Wait. Right. Here's. Okay. Now, are we going to stop? Good. So now we're exiting the Grand Army Plaza area. If you continue down this street, Vanderbilt Avenue, that'll be the subject of another walk. We're going to cross against the signal because there are no vehicles coming. Across the street is a remnant of what used to be a 24/7 bodega just outside the Grand Army Plaza station of the 2 and the 3, and a place where in the 80s you knew you could always go there no matter what time of day if you needed a pint of ice cream. We're on Flatbush Avenue now. Flatbush Avenue, well, we are walking northwest. Flatbush Avenue goes through downtown Brooklyn in the direction we're going and ends at the Manhattan Bridge. The last few blocks of Flatbush, I think beginning with DeKalb Avenue, are called officially Flatbush Avenue Extension. You can see on the horizon the tallest building ever constructed in Brooklyn. I don't know the name of it. Maybe we'll find that out on another walk. We're going to cross back over to the other side of Flatbush. Thank you for yielding to pedestrians. The 7th Avenue stop on the B and the Q. So this is interesting name and sign for a business using the logos of the B and the Q train. Don't know if that's a copyright or trademark issue for the MTA. When we walk through Gowanus, not on this walk, we'll point out a bagel shop that was taken to court by the MTA for naming their bagel shop after one of the subway lines. This is a Duane Reade that I'm guessing was opened well before Walgreens acquired Duane Reade, because there's no indication other than on the pharmacy sign that Walgreens is a part of Duane Reade, or vice versa. Most Duane Reade locations now give equal space in the trademark to Walgreens. I don't want to plug individual businesses too much, but that is a very good sushi location. I've been curious to find out, in fact, where they get their fish from. These buildings lining the east side of Flatbush are mostly original since the late 1800s. I think we've seen a noticeable increase in graffiti of all kinds during the pandemic. An example of this is that there's graffiti on 3 different stories adjacent to a fire escape, but I don't think you would have seen that a few years ago. I don't think the graffiti would have been applied in the first place, or if it had, it would have been removed much quicker, or removed, period. think this was a Cuban restaurant across the street. Not anymore. Sorry for that brief pause. There was some sidewalk level construction work going on. Across the street, Brooklyn's only donut plant location, I think. I don't know if it's been open. It was closed for a long time during the pandemic. So oh, hold on. Look, a green cab. Let's just go across the street one more time. Sorry if this seems disorienting. The building across the street on the left is the NYPD 7-8 precinct. The exterior of this building has been used in films and TV shows, including it was supposed to be the location of the short-lived series Brooklyn South. I know this will mean nothing to anyone watching this now, but there's an overpowering smell of bacon right now. I'm trying to find out where it's coming from. There's some business down there called the Simpson. Don't know what it is, and we're not going to learn today. So these residential buildings, recently constructed, including immediately to our right, part of what was originally called Atlantic Yards. The master plan included the Barclays Center, and we're seeing the eastern end of that, and a lot of residential towers. So these are among the first of the residential buildings to be constructed. This one coming up on the corner, this building with a reddish facade, and we'll see it better when we turn the corner, was billed as the largest modular construction ever of a residential building. So I'm not sure we'll be able to see it clearly here, but basically each of these apartments was manufactured think nearby, maybe even in the Navy Yard, and installed by a crane into this residential tower. Right. We are crossing Flatbush Avenue, probably not for the last time. Want to get a better view of the Barclays Center. I know the exterior may look rusty to you, but it really is rusty. Right. And the building, the tall building at the center, was originally built as the Williamsburg Savings Bank building in the 1930s, I think. And up until 10 years ago, 15 years ago, so for a period of approximately 80 years, 70 to 80 years, it was the tallest building in Brooklyn. Now, especially with the super tall building that's being built above Junior's at DeKalb Avenue in Flatbush. Look, Shake Shack and Chick-fil-A. Marquee, the constantly changing assault on your senses of the Barclays Center. Although it seems pretty quiet today. No events, no demonstrations. Across the street, the building that says Burlington Coat Factory and Best Buy and Marshall's. Okay, we'll give equal time to Old Navy too. That is part of the Atlantic Center shopping mall. Well, it is the Atlantic Center shopping mall, which is connected by a pedestrian bridge to the Atlantic Terminal shopping mall. They're basically the same enterprise, but developed at different times. If you look along the border of the Atlantic Center Mall, with pennants at the top and just the general shape of the building, it may remind you of a baseball stadium. And on this site, which is Atlantic Avenue just east of Flatbush, this was intended to be the site of the future stadium of the Brooklyn Dodgers, who needed a larger stadium to expand their revenues, but ended up moving a little further west to Los Angeles. And I think that's where we'll end today's walk. But first, here is the recently constructed Atlantic Barclays Center subway entrance with the neon sculpture above saying "We belong here." And well, you can't see it from here, but you're going to have to take my word for it that the entire roof of the Barclays Center is a green roof. But I will show you that, and I think we can see it from here, like its much larger sibling, the entrance to the subway station is also covered by a green roof. Okay, let's hear it for stormwater capture. And that's the end of today's walk. I'm infrared, and this is what you've been watching. So I lied when I said that this was the end. I wanted to give you this other perspective on the Barclays Center from just across Atlantic Avenue. And you can see the top of the center, the roof. It does not appear green now. My guess is they are replanting it this spring, or this is just the way it looks in winter. I don't know. I'm not a green roof expert, and I want to show the entrance to Atlantic Terminal, which is not only the name of this mall to our right, but there is a railroad terminal for the Long Island Railroad, now called Atlantic Terminal. Up until at least the 1990s, this Long Island Railroad terminal was called Flatbush Terminal. And that was the signage on the platforms, and that was the designation on the timetables and the tickets. Now it's Atlantic Terminal. There was a terminal here built for the Long Island Railroad in approximately 1904, just about the time that the IRT subway, the original subway line, was extended to Atlantic Avenue in 1908, thereabouts. So we're going to descend into the terminal briefly. And not only is this the Long Island Railroad terminal, but you can get, I think, 10 different subway lines here. On weekends, trains from Atlantic Terminal run on two lines, Far Rockaway and Hempstead branches. But and one of those lines, or service to each branch, is every hour. So there's a train leaving here every half hour on weekends. And even though the trains directly serve only two branches, they connect with all other branches in Jamaica. Well, all other branches except the Port Washington branch, which you can only get, is the only Long Island Railroad branch that doesn't go through Jamaica. A benefit to people who live along that branch. And then, as I said, from here you can get, lots of different subway lines. Okay, only 9. I said 10. I think it was 10 when the M train used to run through Atlantic Barclays. By the way, the station more recently, before the Barclays Center was constructed, was called Atlantic Pacific. And before that, Atlantic and Pacific were two separate stations, and you could not transfer between them for free. If for whatever reason you had to transfer between Pacific Street and Atlantic Avenue, there was a separate set of turnstiles. And so here is where we'll end today's walk. And again, the Williamsburg Savings Bank, for decades the tallest building in Brooklyn, and the current champ. Okay. And I guess I would be remiss if I didn't point out, well, a Nathan's Cart, Caesar's Empanadas, which are now advertising Berea. Maybe on a future walk we will sample all known Berea trucks. And the Apple Store. Right, with no lines forming on the outside. Again, looking back at the real Atlantic Terminal, this is what you're looking at. Goodbye.